Welcome to your 20-minute podcast with David Brower, where we do our best to give you useful information in 20 minutes or less. Now, here's your host, 5-time Voice Arts Awards nominee, David Brower.
Thanks, Alan. This is David Brower with your 20-minute podcast. Our special guest from Lexington, Virginia is Kelly Williams. Now, Kelly is an accomplished author. She's no stranger to change. Her book, The Princess Rancher, chronicles her major life shift from the corporate world to life as a cattle rancher. She has developed the 7 Key System, a step-by-step approach to lasting change and getting the life you desire. She's been published in several magazines, is currently starting her own podcast, The Naked Eye, and she's traveled all over the world and has witnessed firsthand the rise of a small Virginia company into the 3rd largest food distributor in America. Kelly, welcome to the show. What a thrill to have you here.
Well, thank you, David. I'm really excited to be here, and I appreciate you having me on this evening.
You bet. So how did you go from the Princess Rancher to the food distributor to the 7 Key System to the I'm going to get on my horse and get out of here? Where did
Right.
that fun stuff come from?
Well, it was crazy. I started out in the corporate world in food, which allowed me the incredible benefit to travel all over the world. Then, like most people, usually a crisis is what happens that necessitates change.
You bet.
And that is exactly what happened in my case. And so then I found myself at midlife starting all over again and moving in a completely different direction, which is cattle ranching. And my second husband, he also was in the middle of a total life change when the housing market imploded in 2007. It was time to start over. So we decided, he had a lot of experience in cattle. Me, on the other hand, the closest I ever got to the word barb was Barbie.
Well,
certainly not barbed wire.
No, I would have cut right to the stake,
Right, exactly. Well, we slowly moved into the business step by step, but I ended up building over 30 miles of barbed wire fence with my husband. And anyone who has ever tried to do anything with their husband knows that was not a good idea.
Especially 30 miles worth.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's how the whole thing started. But through that journey, I wrote my memoir, The Princess Rancher, because I really wanted an honest account of what it's like to change your life. You can talk about what you should do, but I wanted to talk about what I actually did. And it was no holds barred. I talked about what it was like to let go of a life that was very easy, to take on risk and things I wasn't comfortable with. And it also, though, is about repackaging your skills, because I ended up really coming full circle. I had worked for manufacturers. I had worked in distribution and with chefs. Well, now I was actually becoming a producer of exactly what is on that plate.
Yeah.
So it was a great way to really be able to reinvent myself, but also realizing that we should never pigeonhole ourselves with our skills, because things translate in so many different ways, but you have to come up with a plan and you have to let it evolve. I think we get very impatient and just not let something kind of percolate and develop over time.
Well, we really do, because we're in that immediate gratification place, right? We're going 100 miles an hour. And,
exactly.
I got these skills over here. Well, that won't translate over there, so I guess I'll just stay here and be miserable for the next 20 years.
Right.
And you're right. I mean, personally, I love to reinvent myself every couple of years. Drives my wife crazy, but I'm okay with that because I love it. I love change. I love seeing what's over the horizon. Oh, well, let's go do that for a while, And,
right.
You and I are a rare breed, and I admire that in you.
We are, but I love it because I think that change is exciting. It really jumpstarts your life, and it pushes you to grow. And I've always had a joke with my friends and family, and my goal is whoever does the most before you die wins.
There you go. There you go.
That's what I live by.
Yeah, back in the day, a few generations ago, I think it was whoever dies with the most toys wins, but that was probably made up by a man.
Right. Exactly.
So if I get your gist right, your book is not only tells this story of transition and going from one place to the other, but it feels like it's kind of a no holds barred, down and dirty, gritty. This is how it really is, folks. You need to pay attention to the opportunities that are out there.
Right, exactly. And then from that book, I thought a lot about how I was able to move through that period. And that's why I developed the 7-key system, because basically most people are not very good at self-evaluation.
For sure.
And really, in order to change your life, there's so many books and so many programs out there, but it comes down to kind of building a journal. And so the 7-key system really digs deep into basically where you're at currently. It asks you to look at the good parts of your life, the bad parts, figure out what you want to keep, what you don't want to keep. But then we also have to look at our thinking style. Are we the type of person that their glass is half empty or half full? So you have to look at your thinking style. You have to look at the skills that you do have. And then you have to determine what matters most in your life. And so these exercises begin to work you through that process of evaluating really where to begin, because I think that's what's really hard for people. They want to change, or they might think about it, but they just don't know where to start.
Well, they don't. And if they're like me, sometimes they think about it for a minute and then they overthink about it for 5 minutes and then they walk away and forget it for a few days, or a few weeks or a few months or whatever, because, it's just too hard. It's too complicated.
Right.
I'll stay where I'm at. And so your 7-key system seems to be a very, come on, let's do this. Let's figure out a way to do this and take a look at yourself honestly and see where you are, see where you want to go, and maybe find a few ahas along the way.
Exactly. And it's fun because you're not sharing this with anyone. It's a personal journey.
Yeah.
And it also delves into your mind and why it is hard to change, why it's hard to get rid of bad habits and, replace them with good habits. And a lot of it is all about the warring factions that go on in our brain, because our body and our mind pushes for homeostasis. They don't want change. They want the status quo, even if you're miserable. So this is kind of a way to push you through that and maybe try to pull you out of the places that you're stuck. And you still have to do the work, but there are no right or wrong answers. It's a personal journey.
I love it. And because it's personal, with any luck, you give yourself permission to be more vulnerable than maybe you would otherwise, right?
Exactly. And you can be honest because you're building a workbook that is between you and those pages. Nobody has to see it. You can be honest, brutally honest, if you have the guts, and it helps a lot.
Speaking of guts, when you think about the thinking process, here's a heck of a segue, right? When you think about or talk about the thinking process, you're thinking in your brain, you're thinking with your heart, you're thinking with your gut. I mean, do all those pieces kind of play into this in some way, shape, or form? Do they play nicely together to help you out?
They do in some respects, and they don't in others. Okay. The warring factions in your brain, and there have been a lot of books about how to change your thinking. And it is done by repetition, by constantly replacing the repetitive negative thoughts with your new thoughts. But if you come up with a roadmap, let's say there are 5 things that you want to change in your life, every time that you find yourself thinking and moving down that wrong path, you acknowledge it, you don't beat yourself up about it, but you stop and you start over. And eventually you reprogram your brain. It's the same reason why bad habits are easy, because it's usually enjoyable things like laying on the couch all day as opposed to working out.
Or because it's a learned behavior, right?
Exactly.
I mean, my dad was a couch potato, so therefore I'm a couch potato, and thank you very much.
Right, exactly. And learned behaviors can be unlearned. But what happens, it's kind of like New Year's resolutions. You bite off way more than you can chew at the moment, and so you get discouraged and you just can it all.
Absolutely.
And so my approach is to go slow, to take your time, one little thing at a time. And for each success that you build on, you've got that positive desire to keep going. I love
it. And looking at your 7 keys, it strikes me as almost a, what do I want to say, a kind of a side-by-side yellow pad, right? So what is working in your life and what isn't? All right, I'm going to write down what's working on this side. I'm going to write down what's not working on this side. And then I'm going to come back in a couple of days and go, well, that was crap. This is really more honest. And this, I mean, you can't just, right? You just can't write it down and be done with it. It's work.
Right. It is work, and it's a journey, and it's something that you constantly change and upgrade. But what I like about it is that you can use it as many times in your life as you want. Whenever you get stuck somewhere, it just forces you to think. And that's really what it's all about. It's a personal journey, but it's forcing you to look at your life in ways that you may not look at if you were just on your own trying to change.
One of the things, number 6, if you take them in order, conquering fear. I mean, that's an unbelievable hurdle for a lot of people. And that is not a left column, right column kind of thing. That's like how do you do that,
Well, it's a huge, huge problem. And everybody has fears. And I know, speaking from myself, and many women have this, is we have an incredible fear of risk.
Yeah.
I think many times men are maybe easier taking on risk. Women, being mothers and having that natural mothering instinct, we want security. So for me to put our entire livelihood in live animals that can die at any moment made me gasp. I just didn't know how to even comprehend this. I had to just get into it. And every day, every week, every month, every year, I've been able to push myself and be a little bit better with risk. So fear is a difficult factor. It stops a lot of our progress. But the funny thing is, if we write down what our fears are, suddenly they just don't seem so daunting. That's just recognizing fear.
It makes them real, doesn't it?
It does, but it also kind of, in a way, you look at it and go, oh, well, okay, what's the worst that can happen here? And so I get into that. I get into how to tackle fear slowly, a little bit at a time. And like I said before, everything is about baby steps. If we don't sabotage ourselves by wanting everything to happen tomorrow, there's so much success that we can have.
That is our culture, unfortunately. So you really, you really got to step up. You really got to make the commitment and go, you know what? I'm freaking worth it. So let's go.
Yeah.
Besides the Princess Rancher, beef, burgers, and bones.
Yes.
Now, that must be a recipe book.
That is my tried and true cookbook from the ranch. We, twice a year, we work everything on horseback like they do out west. So twice a year, all the family members come in with their horses, and we have a great working day to get the cattle ready for the next season. And then at the end, I'm feeding a lot of hungry mouths. And so over time, I decided, okay, I've got to do a recipe book and with little stories, and it has family history because there is so much of my life was spent around the kitchen table with 4 and 5 generations of women and telling stories. And that is so lost today.
Isn't it? Yeah, it really is.
It's sad because our stories are getting lost. And that's the part, that's the part that I think needs to somehow be retained is who are we as a family and generation.
I remember when my mom passed, and long story short, I was blessed to stay with her the last 3.5 months of her life as she was dying of cancer. And all of her sisters were gone except for one. And I said, Mom, I've been in radio for a long time and how to voice and interview things and blah, blah, blah. And I said, Mom, can we just have a conversation? Can I just record stories about you and Grandma and your siblings? I mean, she came from 12 kids, right? 6 boys, 6 girls.
Right.
And she's going, I don't think so. And I tried as gently as I could, and it just never happened. And so years later, when my wife's dad was getting really ill and we knew he was going to pass, I asked him the same thing. I said, Roger, is it okay if, I come over and interview you about your life and pass it along to your kids and grandkids? And that would be great. And so we sat down over 4 days, had just such amazing conversation. And part of the stories he told, he'd never even told his wife.
Yeah.
Because he worked for the government and there was top secret stuff. And so some of those stories were like, nobody had ever heard those in the 84 years he was alive. And
I know.
So, right? To miss that kind of stuff is just, oh my God.
Yeah, it's crazy. It makes us who we are. And in good times and in bad, like in my family, I came from a long line of very strong women that had to do just crazy things to survive. But what's great is my daughters can read those stories and think, wow, okay, when I get in a jam, this is part of my heritage. We can do this. And stories are amazing. Yeah, they're just amazing.
Yeah, I love that. We've only got a couple of minutes left. I want to tell people about your blog, God, Crisis, and Opportunity. Everyone is not a winner. Constipation is taking a deadly turn. I love that. How much does your life weigh? Just fascinating subjects and topics, and so easy to read. And of course, the beef, burgers, and bones, the 7-key success system is huge. And if I remember correctly, don't you have a new book coming out?
We have a new book that is collaborative, that is so exciting. Diana Todd Banks is an Australian author, and she started a podcast, The Maturepreneurs. And so this book is 50 people from all over the world that at midlife totally changed their lives. And it's so cool. I'm so excited about it. It's coming out soon, and I will have it available when it does on my website. And I have a chapter in there. But the really great thing is that it talks the talk and it walks the walk. If you really want to know about change, you can see what other people have done. And it's all in one book. So I'm very excited about that. And I think it'd be helpful.
I would love to talk to you about that new collaborative book when it comes out. So be sure to let me know, okay?
Oh, I definitely will. I will. And I have so enjoyed talking to you and being here. Thank you.
Thank you. And folks, go to KellyGrayWilliamsBooks.com. That's Kelly, Gray, Gray, Williamsbooks.com. And you can learn more about Kelly, the 7 keys, her books, her blog, and the upcoming book. You can catch her on social media. And it's been a real treat. Been a real treat. Thank you, Kelly. Have a great day, and good luck on your next drive.
Well, thank you, and thanks again for having me.
Listen to Your 20-Minute Podcast with David Brower on the go. Downloads are available on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, any podcast app, and on our website at davidbrowervo.com/Your 20-Minute Podcast. Until next time, thank you for listening.